Daryl Recommends Podcast is a podcast recommending series, and shouldn't be mistaken as a reviewing one. Opinions about each show are my own, and should not reflect what each show has to offer. Content warnings aside, I believe if any recommendation in my series interests you, you should give it a chance, regardless of how I personally feel about the show.
This recording comes from the phone of Dr. Schumacher Weiss.
Hey Mama, ich bin's. Ich soll für eine Firma, für die ich arbeite, für ein paar Wochen. Hey Mama, it's me. One of the companies I work for needs me to go on a trip out to Svalbard for a few weeks. Well, more accurately, I hope to work for them. Apparently they received a signal from one of their outposts that may indicate some rather interesting finds. Seeing as how they've been looking to expand, I'm hoping this job will solidify in a good job for me within their geological team. Oh, my stop is coming up, Mama. I'm sorry I will miss Papa's birthday, but I ordered a gift for him and shipped it to you. Please wrap it up and give it to him at the party, okay? After all this time, in this job market, I cannot afford to pass up this opportunity. I spoke with Rolf yesterday about this. He was obviously upset, but he supported my choice to take this job. If I impress them, I would not have to live permanently on Svalbard, as most of their geological surveys take place during the summer months. It would be rough, but the payment would certainly help us with our house.
A series of documents is all that is left by a repair team sent to an isolated bunker in Svalbard, documenting the mysterious events that transpired there. The White Vault is a horror podcast taking place around the world. The show is currently 6 seasons long, with the first 5 being the story's first arc, and the last season, current season, being a completely new storyline, surrounding different characters from the first 5 seasons. So this was a interesting podcast. It was really funny how I started listening to it, because it was one that I did bookmark and I planned on listening to eventually. But I have a group of friends that I met in college who have a Discord server, and they invited a lot of their friends that they've met, some of them who obviously don't live in the area, so I didn't know them. And during one time I was on call with my friends, and some of their friends were on the call. One of us brought up the topic of podcasts, and it turns out that they were as much of a big podcast nerd as I am. So we spent the night just recommending each other a ton of shows, and this was the one that they were like, hands down, please go and listen to it. So I ended up listening to this one. I got them to listen to Malevolent and Woebegone, and so this is now the video of me talking about this show, and this was definitely a very refreshing take on horror that I've seen in a hot minute. The vibes are very The Thing, but also that nice little bit of historical twist to it, and I think it was just a nice little refreshing different thing to see in the horror audio drama space, especially since horror audio drama is such a big thing, and it's nice to find something that is just oh, this is different, and I really enjoyed it for that. And one of the things I also really enjoyed is that the mystery remains intriguing even after the first storyline has been done. Now, the current storyline that they're on, at least for season 6, is called Goshawk. The first one does have a name, but the name is kind of a little bit of a spoiler, at least until midway through season 3, only because of just some of the stuff that happens in the first 2 seasons. If I say it, then it's kind of like one of those things I don't want to spoil people on. If you're not a big stickler for spoilers, then I'm sorry, but that's something I'm going to be going into. Because I think it was a neat little twist, and then they were oh yeah, this is what we've been calling the first 5 seasons. It's okay. Especially for a show that is as unique in how it does its horror in it. It's also got a really great cast of characters to back it up. There's a lot of people who I've recognized from other shows I listen to, such as Daryl from Woebegone, and also Beth Erie, who is currently in the Magnus Protocol. So, lots of different people from other shows, and all into this show. And what's cool is that this is probably the most diverse show that I've listened to so far. I have listened to a lot of really diverse shows, but if you want to take it into a modern context, all the characters are from different nationalities. And I'm sorry, it was so funny because I went on their Twitter account shortly after I got into the show, and I was like, I'm gonna go follow their Twitter account because I follow the Twitter accounts of all the podcast people that I like. And I followed their Twitter account, and one of the first tweets that they posted out, at least at the top of their timeline, not like first thing that they tweeted about, was them talking about an offer that somebody got for wanting to make the White Vault into a TV show, but was like, oh yeah, the show would be better if everybody was American. So my friend who got me into the show made this very wonderful concept poster, so beautiful, so nice and amazing, and I have to share that story because it got a very, very good giggle out of me. I very much like enjoyed the show, especially since like for one thing, it like had me use. So I've been teaching myself French and also been going to school learning a bit of French for like the past 2 years now. And then before that, when I was in high school, I took like 5 years of Spanish. And one of the things that I like with the show is that it's like made me have to like use that again. So like I'm not fluent in Spanish or French, so don't assume I am. And if you're a Spanish speaker, then I think you might enjoy this show a lot because there's a lot of Spanish speakers in this show. A lot of them are from like different parts of like South America, or like one of the main characters is from Mexico, for example. And there's also like characters who speak Portuguese, characters who speak Icelandic, characters who speak Russian. It's just like it's a show that takes into account that like not everybody in it can speak English. And granted, it is a show where like the primary language is English, and for parts where characters are like writing down notes and stuff and they're writing it in another language, they'll have the characters like start writing stuff out in their native language and then they switch it over to English. And I think that's like a neat little twist to show that like the characters who are like part of this nationality are not doing the like AO3 writing a character who's bilingual, just only slipping random words into English sentences to let everybody know that they are bilingual. And it's just a very cool way that they went about with showing that these characters are like speaking in like any other language that isn't just English. And then other times in the show they will have conversations especially in like seasons 3 and 4, where there's a lot of characters who speak Spanish. They'll be speaking a lot of Spanish, and you kind of have to pick up, if you're not like somebody who's fluent in Spanish, like what they're talking about. And I just think that's like really cool way to go about with it. And the horror in the show is like really good and unique. Like I said, it keeps like it builds up a mystery and it doesn't explain the full mystery. And in fact, season 5 leads off at a point where it's like, oh, there's like way more they could do with this. That like you would think like, oh well, there's 5 seasons of the show. It's like when they already done a lot. But they leave like enough points open that it's like they could do a bit more. And I think that's what Goshawk is getting into, especially since Goshawk leaves off at a point where it's like, if they don't do a season 7, then what are they doing? And I hope that there'll be a season 7 soon. Goshawk finished like earlier this year, so, and I listened to it like at the beginning of the summer, so, you know, there you go. But if you are worried about content warnings, there's some minor gore and some murder. It's mostly just your typical like scary horror stuff. But if you're somebody who doesn't like a bunch of viscera or anything, don't worry. There's not really any of that in there. It's just mostly just like murder. I think the most murderous that the show gets like is either off screen or somebody got like shot with a gun. And that's really it. So if you don't like super graphic violence or gore and stuff, this show does not have it. But it's just a very like cool horror, pseudo like anthology, pseudo like documentary style show, and I enjoy it. So yeah, and if you're also like one of those people who like read string theorizing shows where you're just sitting there with your string and your corkboard and being like, I gotta make it all connect, this is that kind of show. So I'm going to be linking, of course, to every single site that I can find for the White Vault. Like, any website, like, I'm pretty sure Fable Follies probably got a website. That's the name of the pairing of, like, the 2 couple that make this show. And I am also in the mood to get to more requests, as I always am. recommend me shows. As you can probably tell in this video, I was recommended this show by a friend, and now I listen to it. That could be your show. All you have to do is recommend it to me, and I will listen to it. And maybe someday make a video about it. I do got a lot of videos I have to make, so we'll get there eventually. Anyway, I hope you have a good one. Bye.